Alright people, we're here to talk about what makes a good protagonist, part 1. So before we get into that, what is a protagonist? They're the main character of their story and push the narrative forward. So John Wick going on his path of revenge, usually trying to get rid of Sakuna, and Eren Yeager being a genocidal maniac. So these are some good examples of our characters pushing the narrative forward. But Mitch, how does that connect to what makes a good protagonist? I'm getting to that. The protagonist has to affect the narrative. If the protagonist isn't making any contributions to the plot, you're like, what are they doing? It's like that one NBA player that stands there to stop and stare, not shoot the ball during the game-changing score. Now, there are shows and animes that compensate for this with the supporting cast, but that's rare and few. But I digress. Your character has to affect the narrative like a virus. After John Wick's life is upturned by some Russian mobster punks, he goes out and starts going on the path of vengeance. Now, why it's important? Because his path of vengeance reverberates throughout the entire narrative. So, he goes back to the Continental, which is just an organization of assassins. And they know John Wick's back in business, so they're there to help him out. But more importantly, the villains are afraid of John Wick because of his capabilities as an assassin and act accordingly. In other words, the villains are worried about how to stop this force of nature that is John Wick because he is wiping them off the board. Number 2, relatability. You have to be relatable to the protagonist's goals in order to root for them. Now, I'm not saying you work a 9 to 5. The main character has to work a 9 to 5. Let's just say you suffer with depression, and the main character also suffers with depression. You want to see their story through your eyes because you're trying to emulate yourself through them because you guys are going through the same struggle. So now you're invested in how they overcome their obstacles. Fullmetal Alchemist is a great example of this. The reason why us as the readers and watchers connect with Ed and Al is because they lost their mother. Now we can all understand the feeling of loss, and we're rooting for them to bring their mother back. But that backfires, causing Al to lose his body and Ed to lose an arm and a leg. But we're rooting for them to get their bodies back because we understood they were doing that for good intentions. Or one of my most favorite examples I'm about to use is Hellsing, because at first glance, Alucard just seems like a vampire who likes to cause havoc and chaos to his enemies. However, he's more nuanced than that. He's a man who understands what humanity is and that he gave it up in order to become this monstrous fiend. Despite Alucard's cruel and sadistic tendencies, it's relatable because we pity him. And lastly, you have to make the audience root for the protagonist. Notice I didn't use the word likability. Yeah, a lot of people say you need to like the protagonist, but that is not true. You can have some of the most scummiest protagonists and still love them. For example, Ghost from Power or Eren Yeager. If it comes down to it, if we met Ghost in real life, we'd probably hate this man because he's a gangster and a drug dealer. But we root for him because everybody in the story is just as bad as him. So Ghost is more or less the lesser of two evils, and we want to see him succeed in his rise to power because he's so charismatic and captivating. We were rooting for Eren Yeager's revenge against the Titans because after what happened to his mother, we wanted to see him kill all the Titans and get his revenge. But as the narrative progresses, we find out it's actual human beings responsible for the destruction of Eren's hometown. So Eren Yeager returns the favor, killing men, women, and children. But wait, why are we rooting for him while he's doing that? Well, the bad guys were just as bad as him, so it makes us a little less sympathetic towards them. But doesn't excuse him trying to cause the human race to go extinct. This man was trying to cause mass genocide on a whole nother level. But yeah, those are my opinions on what makes a good protagonist. What do you guys think?